guys, welcome to my Midlife Capers. I'm going to do a little Q&A. I've had some questions come in and I figured this would be a good time to get some of that covered. I have a bee circling one of the lights and I have a cat that is trying to capture it. So this could be kind of interesting. We also just had a storm and the birds are pretty vocal, so we'll give it a shot and see how it goes. So the first question I got is, what's this all about? I did explain some of it in the introductory video that's on the channel, but just to go a little bit deeper, I had read a post from a friend of mine on Facebook recommending Travels with Charlie by John Steinbeck. And somehow through all of my literature studies, getting advanced degrees, I had never heard of it. And so it really intrigued me and I picked up a copy of it and read it. And I immediately had this story just... I had this story just kind of emerge, almost fully formed in my head, and I mean, like, it just, like, I woke up with it, and I was like, I have to do this. So in the midst of several life changes, I was trying to think of what I was going to do next, and I also realized at that point that if I was going to write this book, that I probably ought to see some of the places I was going to be writing about, because there were plenty that I hadn't visited. So I bought the camper and started putting everything in place, doing research and figuring out how I was going to go about it, what I needed on the road, on those kinds of things. And decided to follow Steinbeck's route on that he followed in Travels with Charlie. And I am not following it exactly. I'm, first of all, taking a lot longer to do it, and I'm also not going exactly location by location. I'm still going through all the same states, but I'm visiting some different areas, either because there are things that I've always wanted to see in those locations, or I know people in certain areas and I want to make sure I can go through there and visit them. So that's basically what's driving all of this. Is I've been in publishing in some way or another for 30 years, and I have helped a lot of other people publish their books and realize their dreams of becoming published authors. And I've even ghostwritten for several people, but I've never taken the time and energy to put into my own thing that's just for me. And so that's what I'm doing now. Let's see, the next question. How did you choose the route you're taking? Well, I just kind of covered that. So I would not have been going around the U.S. if I were not doing this project. Because I had initially thought I'd go overseas for a few months just to kind of regroup after everything that had happened, but I didn't feel comfortable being so far away from my mom while she's adjusting to a new way of life. And so as this emerged as an option, it really made the most sense for me. How long will you be traveling? Well, let's see. I've been on the road for a few months now, and I am probably going to be on the road for another 3 or 4 months. So all told, I'd say 7 months, maybe, 7 or 8. And once I'm finished with my loop of the U.S., I'll still be living in a camper for a little while I figure out what's next. And then I may do that overseas trip, and I'll have a whole new thing to document on my Midlife Capers. We'll just have to see. I'm leaving it up to whatever I'm inspired to do in the moment. So, and I guess that's something you get to do when you have an empty nest and you're in your mid-50s and, have fewer ties to a specific place and time. So, why did you choose a pop-up camper instead of a hard body camper? Well, cost was definitely a factor. I only had so much that I could really afford to put into this, since the return on my investment is going to be far down the road, if I get a return on the investment at all. But the bigger factor for that was my tow capacity on my car. I wasn't going to go buy a new car, so I had to work with what mine could handle, which was around 2,000 pounds. And while there are some hard body campers that fit that weight capacity, they're really more like the teardrop ones that are a lot smaller. And while it would function just fine for like weekend getaways and that kind of thing, living out of it and working out of it and cooking and all of the other things that I have to do, it just was not going to be sufficient space. So that's how I ended up with a pop-up camper. Let's see. What websites are useful in choosing a good campground? Well, there are a lot. I mean, you can just do a Google search for campgrounds in a particular area and come up with all kinds of stuff. There are going to be individual listings just by location, but there's always the obvious KOA. I'm sure you've heard of that organization that has campgrounds all over the country, and they're great. I've used them a couple of times. I will end up using them a couple more times before I'm done. The drawback to them, even though they have good amenities and nice facilities and all of that, they do run a little bit more in price, and they fill up faster because they are a very familiar, it's a known quantity. And so your options can get kind of limited if you're waiting until the last minute on things. The source that I have used most often is Good Sam. It's a company that aggregates a lot of resources for campers and RVers and that kind of thing. In fact, I got my membership through Camping World when I bought my camper there. You don't have to purchase something from Camping World to get a Good Sam membership, but that's just how I got mine. And I also, in addition to their membership, that gets me discounts at their affiliated campsites and other products, and I think like Flying J gas stations, you can get a discount there as well. I have a roadside coverage with them and tire replacement and repair coverage with them, which I'm going to have to use sometime soon because I did have that blowout in North Carolina, and I've just been driving around with a threadbare tire on the back of my camper that I haven't been able to replace yet. But they put it back on with the hydraulic, the lug nuts back on with a hydraulic drill, and so I can't get them off by myself. I'm going to have to take it to a service center. But at any rate, so Good Sam is a great resource. I've also used Hip Camp a couple of times, and they have really neat locations and facilities. They're usually they're private owned, but they're smaller, maybe a little more off the grid and that kind of thing. The only reason I haven't used Hip Camp more is because they do charge a service fee, and it ends up driving up the price even more, and so it's usually not the most economical option that's available in an area, but they have really cool sites, and they're usually run by individuals who have unique facilities. So it's an option, especially if you're just going to do it for a weekend or for just like a 1 week vacation or whatever. Check them out because they do have cool spaces. I just, for what I'm doing, I have to be budget mindful to a degree. The other option, that's out there is state campgrounds, and nearly every state is going to have a website that lists all of their state facilities and how to make reservations and that kind of thing. Again, they are going to fill up faster because they aren't as expensive as some of the other facilities, and a lot of them aren't going to have a whole lot of amenities like the when privately run campgrounds do. But in fact, a lot of them you may have to dry dock, so that's just that's another consideration. But they are much cheaper. You can, very budget friendly, if you can get them. Let's see. Okay. Oh, a couple of other apps or websites that I would like to recommend that have been very helpful for me in this whole thing are Gas Buddy, because they will give you a map of all of the locations in an area, and you can scan out to see how far away you are from a gas station, which is very comforting if you are reaching a point where you are going to need to fuel up and you're on a long stretch of road that seems like it's not going to end. And they also list the prices, and I think sometimes you can get discounts through them. Another is has been very helpful for being on the road. If you are going to have to use a laundromat, Pay Range is an app where you can pay for your laundry without having to have quarters, and that comes in really handy. I've had to delay laundry a couple of times because I didn't have access to quarters because the facility where I was, their machine was broken or hadn't been refilled or whatever. And then On the Way is another app that it's a weather app, and it will show you, like if you put in your location and your destination, it will give you the weather on the route that you're taking, so that you kind of have a general idea of if you're going to run into rain or snow, or if you're going to have a dramatic change in the temperatures and that kind of thing. And so it's just a really helpful app to have when you're living on the road. So anyway, those are the main online resources that I use and come in really handy. Let's see. How long do you stay at a stop? Well, it kind of depends on what the situation is for that location, but usually 5 or 6 days. It's just not worth it to go through all of the hassle of setting up the camper if I'm only going to be there for a night or two. It's a lot of work. But I will usually do 5 to 6 days because that gives me a chance to see anything that's in the area that is of interest to me, and have some time to do work and other things that I can't do when I'm driving. I try to keep my stops about 5 hours apart, because that way I can leave around 9 and arrive at the next destination around 2-ish, which is the check-in time for most places. And that leaves me plenty of time to get set up and have a restful evening, and I'm not rushed in the morning to get out and get down the road. If I'm looking at a longer drive, like 8 to 12 hours, I will usually just get a hotel somewhere, and I'll get in that 8 or 12 hour drive, and then get up the next morning and drive to my location, so that I'm well rested when I'm going to set up the camp the next time. And sometimes I will stay a little bit longer. I've got a couple other spots that I'm gonna stick around a little bit longer than 6 days, just for personal reasons. But that's the average, 5-6 days, and that gives me enough time to get a feel for the area and have whatever experiences I want to have there. What do you do once you get to a campsite? Well, the first thing I do is check in at the office and find out which site is mine, and then I get parked and I get it leveled and put down my stabilizer jacks, and then disconnect the Jeep from the camper and move it out of the way, because the bunk that goes over the tongue can't come out all the way if the car's in the way, or if the car's still attached. And then I just go through the process of getting everything raised and tucked where it's supposed to go and pulled out and all that kind of stuff. And then I start working on setting things up and getting settled inside. And a lot of times I will get the camper set up externally and get enough done internally to where I can lie down on the bed and take a little nap. And then I will spend the rest of the evening just getting unpacked and settled in and that kind of thing. And then sometimes I might make a run to the grocery store to get supplies if I have run out at the last location, or even if I just don't have anything that I can make easily for dinner, I'll run out and do that. But sometimes I'll wait until the next day and make a little bit more thoughtful and planned run to the grocery store and take care of a couple of other errands. So, but that's basically a setup day for me. What do you find yourself doing most days once you're settled into a campground? Well, I'm still working. I have several clients with projects in various stages of development. So I'm editing and working on production and coaching and writing and doing a variety of other things for them. And so there are a lot of times that I don't get out of the camper all day because I'm trying to hit goals for deadlines. And then I've also got my own stuff. I'm, editing video, creating content for video, and that kind of thing. So, yeah, it's a kind of the same as what I would do at home. I'm just having to move my home around every few days. And so there's a little bit of extra stuff there. And, I do try to suss out what's in an area that I might want to see and figure out which day is going to work best. And, I'm still having to kind of take weather into consideration on some of that, and guessing on which day is going to be best to go to something outdoors versus something that would be indoors. And if I don't have something in a location that I am just like really have a burning desire to see, then I will at least try to find a trail or something so that I can get out and get some exercise and fresh air and that kind of thing. But ultimately, I am an introvert, and I have been working from home for 16 years. And so, that's a very easy routine to get stuck in, and it hasn't really changed a lot, even in a camper. So that's kind of what my days are like. Have you been able to talk with many local people? Some. Weather has been a challenge because, if it's raining, people aren't going to be out and about. They're going to be, battened down in their own campers. I do encounter people when I go to the grocery store or the gas station, or if I'm going to any other attraction that might be in an area. I will interact with people there and kind of, get a feel for who they are, what they're like. I have talked with some people in the campgrounds. Definitely the people who run the place. I have had conversations with them, told them what I'm doing, and they've all been really intrigued and encouraging on it. But I'm still looking for an opportunity to have more conversations with people. So, have you seen groups of campers traveling together? I don't know. I would imagine there probably are people who are traveling in groups, and either they're all crammed into one RV or a tent or whatever, you know. Um, again, because I'm not talking to them a lot, I don't know how much of that there is, but I do know that a lot of the campgrounds where I'm staying have seasonal regulars, meaning that these are people who have RVs that they park here, and they will stay the entire season in this one location. And some of them live in the general area, but they like being able to come to this outdoors, different scenario. Some people are migratory and they will come up north where it's a little bit cooler in the summers, and spend the summer on a lake or something like that, and then they'll spend their winters down in Florida or warmer regions, and just keep moving like that. But they will stay in one location for a season, and they really have quite a community. I've found that a lot of them are either friends, and they go to the same campgrounds as their friends, or family members. Like a couple with children will come in their camper, and then the grandparents are in another camper, and they're in either adjacent sites or close by, and that kind of thing. So the seasonal camping world is very much a community, and it's been a really interesting thing to observe and learn about. What has been your favorite stop to this point? Every place has had pros and cons about it, and I think that some of the places maybe I would like better in a different time of year, but I think if I had to say, so far the actual campsite I've had that I've really enjoyed the most was probably in Plymouth, Massachusetts. I felt kind of tucked in, and it was really pretty and quiet. The view in St. Ignace, which is just right across from Mackinac Island, the view there was fantastic, and I was like steps away from the water, and so the lapping of the waves and everything was really nice and peaceful at night. But it could also get a little bit noisy. There were more birds in that area, and they'd wake up every morning right before dawn, which up there was 4:30 in the morning, and they would announce that it was time to wake up and make their way into the duck families make their way into the water. The other birds would start circling and waking everybody up, and so it wasn't as quiet as Plymouth, but it really was a nice view. I'm sure that I will find other places that have other things that I really enjoy. The West Coast is always going to be one of my favorites. In fact, the more the country I see, the more time I'm away from the West Coast, the more I know I love it, and that's where I really want to be. But I'm not finished traveling yet, so it'll be there when I am done. Let's see. What are the things you discovered you needed on the road? Well, I think I did cover a lot of that in one of my other videos on tools and tricks and stuff like that. I don't remember which one I called it, but I covered a lot of the things that I had picked up along the way that had really made life a lot easier. But I think bottom line, it's been storage. And that wasn't so much that I didn't know what I needed. I just didn't know what form I needed it in. And so, like, adapting to what was really going to work for ease of setup and takedown, and still hold my stuff well and protect it when the camper was collapsed, and be easily accessible when everything's set up. I had to do a little bit of experimentation on that, and I had to do a little bit of searching to find just the right things. My little storage tubs that are over here where I keep clothing and supplements and things like that. That's probably my favorite find, because they do hold a lot and they're lightweight. But also I didn't even measure, and they just fit perfectly in the floor space for when I have to collapse the camper. And then my clothing hanger, closet space, I really love it too. And I don't know why that happened. I don't know if that thumbs up is going to show up on the video or not. But yeah, that's another thing that I really like, because it's just nice to be able to have everything out where I can see it, and I can choose my clothing, and not feel like I'm having to just like live out of and dig through a suitcase all the time. And then yeah, I think that's pretty much it on that. And then what did you discover you don't need? Well, I think I mentioned the collapsible cat tree. Much wasn't interested in it, and it honestly didn't collapse easily, so it did not serve my purposes, and I left that behind actually before I even left Washington. Another thing that I am coming to accept that I probably don't need to use that much is my Mac Mini. I have my MacBook, and then I have a monitor so that I can make things bigger for the visual limitations I have on certain things. And I don't necessarily need that all the time. It's nice to have an extra operating system for if I'm trying to do multiple projects and things like that and multitask, but I haven't taken it out the last 2 stops, so I'm stuck with it for now. So, it's going to still just take up space, but I haven't been setting it up, so that it does save me a little bit of time, at least in that process. But yeah, I think that's about it as far as stuff that I don't need. I'm still figuring out the balance on the food I buy. Some of it I have great intentions for using, and then for whatever reason don't get to it, and some of it holds on to the next location, sometimes it doesn't, so I'm still figuring that part out. Is the bed comfortable? Well, it's comfortable for what it is. It's a plywood base with support poles that hold it out over the tongue, and it kind of wobbles a little bit, but it works for what it is. And I unfortunately I can't add a thicker mattress, because then the top would not close when I collapse the camper. But what I did do is I got those little foam interlocking squares that you use for like kids play areas, and I put that under the mattress, and then I got a foam topper, so that makes it better than just a thin old camper mattress. And then I have all of my bed linens from home, and they don't necessarily add cushioning, but they add comfort and familiarity, so there's that. Okay, last question. How do you like living in the camper so far? It's not bad. I don't know if I had grand expectations of it or great fears. Um, as I was going into all of this, I think a little bit of both. Um, the more I do it, the more I figure out a rhythm on the setup and takedown. A lot of that fear has dissipated. A lot of the overwhelm I feel in trying to make everything work is dissipating as well. Um, and there's some fun parts to it. It's a cozy little space. I will definitely be looking forward to ending up in a house where I have separate area for sleeping and for working and for eating, rather than having it all in one area. I think the separation of um, the parts of your life are important. So in my home, I've always banned a television from my bedroom, because I just want that to be a restful sanctuary place. And I don't like working where I relax either. So I've always tried to have a separate workspace. And I will look forward to having that back at some point. But for now, this is, it's a fun change, and it's been a really interesting journey so far. Um, I'll let you know if something changes. But for now, that's it. See you on the road.